This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. It is not intended to cause or induce breach of an existing agency agreement.
Hello? 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 This is the Vancouver
Commercial
Real Estate Podcast.
And welcome back to the Vancouver Commercial Real Estate Podcast. I'm Cory Wright.
And I'm Melisa Moretti.
And literally, we're back.
We're back.
We've been gone for a few weeks. It was the end of summer there. We didn't want to leave the listeners with nothing, so we brought out some of our previous episodes from earlier when we started the podcast to give people the opportunity to go back if they hadn't already listened to them to be going back. But we are back now.
Feels like back to school.
It is back to school.
Yeah.
If you've got kids or you're a student, it is back to school now. It's past Labor Day. And we're ready. We're back. We're excited. We got great news this week that the Bank of Canada held rates, which was, I think, to be expected, I would say. Maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but I think maybe the consensus was closer to the announcement that there was a lot of maybe hope around that the rates would hold. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we've sort of hit our peak. Now, the BOC did say in the notes that we are monitoring things very closely. And if things go up, the interest rates may not be done. I think that's safe talk, because if you look back, I think it was January, I believe, where they kind of came out and said, hey, we've kind of peaked. We're going to just ride it out. Things will be good. Not in those exact words, but around those words. And then they looked like fools when March came and rates went up again and again and again and again and again. And it felt like they're never going to come down. So I think it's safe talk to put the words out there that we may not be done. We don't know, but I'm going to be optimistic, looking at the core inflation numbers, looking at the inflation numbers, that we are peaking.
I've stopped guessing.
Yeah, I know. So have I. Yeah. So have I. But I'm going to go optimistically and think we've peaked. Hopefully, moving forward. I know the government of Canada is still saying, our goal is 2% for our inflation. I personally don't think that goal will be the number moving forward. I think the inflation number might be higher than 2 as a target. But the problem is you can't change the goalposts in the middle of the game. And if they go change the goalposts and come out and say, hey, our target's not 2, it's 3, then no one will ever believe them. Not that they believe them anyways, but no one will believe them anyway. Less believe them if they change the rules as they're playing the game.
Yeah. Well, on another note, right before we hopped on the mics.
Yes.
Cory was just telling me how he's volunteered to run 10K for Jaden Lee coming up in 4 weeks.
I haven't run 10K in my life, but I am going to start.
Cory, I didn't know you were a runner.
Neither did I.
That's such a generous contribution.
It was great. It was really good.
I said I was going to do 5K, and he said, I'm going to one up you. I'm going to do 10.
Can I Peloton 10K? Because I could Peloton 10K.
No, it's a run, Cory.
I know, but I don't run. I don't know if you've seen my body. It's kind of very pear-shaped.
That's why I thought
my body doesn't run very well when you're a pear.
Generous contribution. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see.
Well,
Cory and his running.
Better yet, and this is the team player that you are. I know you said you're going to do 5. I'm going to gladly give you my 10 because that's how good of a team player you are. So if you can wrap up 15K for a tremendous cause, would be great. and I will drive behind you. I will make sure no cars pass you. I will bring you McDonald's.
Techno music.
Oh yeah. We can make it a rave while you run, because when your car pulls
Disco ball.
Yeah, because when your car pulls in here, it sounds like a rave's happening in your car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So on the show today, we're very, very lucky. We have Jeff Hancock from our Kelowna office up there at William Wright Commercial, who's a development and land specialist. Jeff does a ton of work up there and is so knowledgeable. One of the best in the business. In that market for what he does, hands down. And we're very fortunate to have him come on today. And we're talking a little bit about the Kelowna fires, because a lot of people would send emails wondering, will that impact? Has it impacted? What's the long-term effects, if any, will it have there? Because we do talk about Kelowna quite a bit. So we reached out to Jeff, asked him if he could join us so we could touch base on that, just to get his thoughts on it, because he's been there for quite some time. He's seen it firsthand, and what impact that has, if any, on that market. And I think people might be kind of very surprised at the answer, but if you kind of seen what's happened over time, I don't think fires in this province it's not really a matter of if, it's more a matter of when, it feels like on an annual basis now. And that seems not to just be isolated to this province, but maybe everywhere in the world, it feels like. So he talks a little bit about that. We also touch base on the Kelowna market. We get his thoughts and opinions on where it's heading, because he's a wealth of knowledge up there. So we're very fortunate to have Jeff on the show today. So without further delay, why don't we get to our interview with Jeff Hancock of our William Wright Kelowna office.
All right, let's go.
This week's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Impact Commercial Group.
Really enjoy working with Impact Commercial. And we should say Al and his team can basically do anything when it comes to lending.
Anything when it comes under the commercial umbrella. You're building a building in development, we got you covered. You're buying land, we'll make that happen for you. You're investing in a property or multifamily building, check. Owner-occupiers looking to acquire their own space, double check. Anything commercial financing you need, Impact Commercial is your go-to.
ImpactCommercial.ca. And we should say over 50 years of combined experience. So trust these guys. They're the right fit.
Best in the business, in my opinion. And we're here today with Jeff Hancock from the William Wright Commercial Kelowna office, one of our development land specialists up there. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on.
So Jeff, before we get into it here, this is your first time on the episode, and we've been very fortunate to have you with the company for a while now. Can you maybe tell our listeners more about yourself and how you got into real estate?
Yeah, you bet. So I started my career in Vancouver about 20 years ago on the development consulting side, and I've worked with a number of different companies, spent some time with Deloitte in their financial advisory practice, as well as some smaller consultancies. So I've worked sort of on the development side. I transitioned to Kelowna about 10 years ago as a family decision, and took a job with a family office up here. And then from there, transitioned into a senior role at the city of Kelowna. I was the director of real estate services there. And then from there, started my own consultancy and started my brokerage business, or back to the brokerage business. I had done some brokerage business down in Vancouver for a few years, way back when. So, just started ramping up again, and have happily landed at William Wright, and have been sort of specializing in development land and income stuff for the last few years now.
Well, we're very pleased to have you, as I said there, and we'll get into maybe some of the amazing work that you've done up there. But before that, one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on today is we got a ton of emails, because one thing we talk about on this show quite a bit is the Vancouver Island market, the BC interior market, and especially with Kelowna there. And unfortunately, the tragic fire situation that happened this year, a lot of people were wondering, how is that going to impact the Kelowna marketplace? Has it impacted the Kelowna marketplace? What's going to happen? So we wanted to have you on. You've been up there for a long time, and I mean, obviously the situation that happened was horrible. And unfortunately, it seems like it happens more and more in this province everywhere now, and around the world for that matter. What impact do you think, or the fires in Kelowna had on the overall real estate market, if any?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there is sort of an immediacy to it. So when it's happening, it's obviously front of everybody's mind, and, it's sort of all hands on deck. I think what people sometimes forget is that, in the Okanagan, we're used to wildfires. Like it's a pretty common occurrence every summer. Obviously, maybe not to the scale of what happened this year, but it doesn't really have a really noticeable effect on demand, at least for the type of real estate that I transact. I think maybe on the residential side, single family residential side, there may be some impact. But on the commercial side, it is really negligible. It's really business as usual. And, the level of sophistication of developers and groups that are interested in being in the Okanagan has really increased over the last decade. And those groups, they're here for the long term. They're looking at this, area of the country as, a really strong growth area, and they want to be here, for the foreseeable future. So, these sort of ebbs and flows, a fire or flood or, whatever may happen, they take it in stride, and they continue, to push forward with their business plan and their agenda, right?
Well, one thing we talked about before we hit record here was, I think it was last year or the year before, I can't remember which year, to be completely honest with you, when there was the fires there that had shut down the Coquihalla for a bit. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, I wonder how that's going to impact the mindset of people buying in Kelowna. And then a week or 2 weeks after, Cressy had their project, which sold out, felt like overnight. There was the water on the park Am I calling that one correct? That sold out.
Water Street on the Park.
Water Street, that sold out like right out. And I thought, first thing I thought in my head, I'm like, okay, well, this hasn't really had any impact on the buyer's mindset.
I think that, now that there's smoke down in the Lower Mainland, there's I feel like we're all kind of in it together. And yeah, certainly there's more effect up here just, with, the topography and the climate that we have up here. But at the end of the day, it's kind of affecting, like you said earlier, Cory, the whole province. Yeah. And, people want to move to the Okanagan. There's so many reasons why, either from a lifestyle perspective or, some of the other economic drivers that are bringing people here, UBCO, all of those good things, and nothing's changed there, right? And it's just going to continue to grow. Are we going to have to maybe adjust and become a little bit smarter in terms of how we build and being more wildfire aware? And I feel like all the municipalities within the Okanagan are working towards that. But in terms of measurable effect on the commercial real estate market, my experience is that after a fire, it's really, we have pretty short attention spans, and within a few weeks to a month, everything is back to normal once things are under control.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. What we've seen from a data standpoint as well, from a company standpoint, it just seems like it's a blip on the radar, and it kind of just picks up from there. But that's a great segue there. You talked a lot about all the great reasons why people are buying to the Okanagan. How is the Kelowna real estate market? Obviously, we've had higher interest rates as of late, which yesterday, the meeting, or 2 days ago, they held rates. The BOC held rates, which was great to see. So hopefully we've kind of hit our peak there. How has the Kelowna market been?
Yeah, I mean, we've ebbed and flowed just like every other real estate market across the country. And, it's been a little bit more tempered over the last, call it 2 years through this inflationary cycle. But again, the fundamentals remain very strong here. And as I mentioned before, the type of developer, the type of investor that is looking in the Okanagan has really changed, over the last little while. And there's very little, sort of pause on their end. I mean, more just like a typical market cycle. Things remain very, very bullish up here, long term. We continue to, not build enough housing for the population growth estimates, which is obviously a major concern and a major issue that, everybody's grappling with. And I think, overall, developers want to build here, whether it's industrial, whether it's office, whether it's, residential. They recognize this is a place where, there's going to be continued growth and continued upside for their investment.
Now, are you seeing, because you specialize in a lot of these large scale acquisitions and land acquisitions up there, and you've done some tremendous deals as of late, are you still seeing the same demand from developers looking to come into that market that maybe we would have seen a couple of years ago when there was so much positive press about Kelowna? Not that there's not anymore, but there was so much press about, fastest growing community in Canada and that. Are you still seeing that high demand from developers? Yeah,
I mean, I think, there's, when things are slower and a little bit more challenging, you get a different type of buyer in the market, right? Guys that are looking, they're a little bit more predatory and they're looking for opportunities. So there's certainly a lot of that, at least in my business, I'm seeing a lot of that. So, I feel, the buy pressure is still there. The deal flow volume has slowed a little bit. But, I can tell you now that, there's a number of, large branded pedigree groups that are on the sidelines waiting for the right opportunity to jump in. And when they do, it'll be, a game changer for the Okanagan. When these guys start building, some of these brands start building up here, to scale, it's really going to, elevate the market here and really, continue to drive demand for land and for income stuff for that matter as well.
So here's a question for you, and this is something that a listener had emailed me a long time ago. Obviously, there's tons of development going on in Kelowna right now, and there's obviously a big surge in population growth. And you just mentioned there about some great developers that are looking to come into that market, which I think kind of answers this question in advance. Do you ever think there'll be an oversupply with all the development happening, considering Kelowna is definitely a secondary market now, I would think, to say like a Lower Mainland now? It's gone up so much. Do you ever think it'll be an oversupply issue, or is demand just so high there and people are just keep coming that issue will probably never really rear its head?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think, if you look at the macroeconomic factors, so, population growth, we're the fastest growing CMA in Canada. We're land, the topography, if you look at the topography, it's tough to find developable land here, whether it's, the restrictions of the lake, or it's, First Nations lands, or it's, just general topography, steepness and slope. There's a lot of reasons similar to Vancouver, that put pressure on the available land supply. So, and to be honest, we're so far behind in terms of, the type of housing that we need to build, that even with the big bulge that's currently kind of working through entitlements, and there is a significant number of developments that are, kind of working their way through, whether they're, rezoned or, under construction, I feel like that supply is going to get absorbed very quickly in this market. So, to get to an oversupply situation, I think we're a long ways away from that. And if ever, especially considering, the plans for UBCO's growth and, all the other, positive things that are happening up here, I think it'll be, I think, it's very highly unlikely that that's going to happen, Cory.
So someone in your shoes who's got decades in this industry, tremendous broker in this industry, worked for the city, do you feel with the new council in place, and there's been some situations, we probably won't get into too much of them, where developers have bought land and they were kind of, I don't want to say led to believe, but under the impression that land would get rezoned from something to something, and that's kind of been put on the back burner. Do you fear, being on the front lines of the development industry, that developers are concerned with maybe some stuff that's taken place with the new council there, where it's not maybe as development friendly as maybe it was previously? Is that ever come up in conversation, or is that just by the wayside because, homes are needed, developments needed, it's coming regardless?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly it's topic and it's top of mind for sure. I think some of the decisions council's made, in my opinion, and that's just strictly my opinion, maybe weren't the most prudent. And, obviously I'm a little biased in terms of how I approach things, but again, developers that are here for the long term, they understand that councils come and councils go, right? There's a term to this. It's really hard to turn the ship, right? And so, they may have to plug their nose for the next few years and deal with a council that maybe isn't as development friendly as they have been in the past. But, guys understand that, they still want to be here, and this is a great market to be in, and that will change. I also feel too that, the young dynamic staff that we have at both the city of Kelowna and the city of West Kelowna, I feel like, that's really where you need to focus, is on at the staff level. Like, who are you dealing with on the staff level? And the people, and I deal with these people daily, are very progressive. They're very smart, more so than a lot of other municipalities throughout the province. They're progressive. They want to drive things forward. And I feel that that's exciting, and that's really where I would focus. Council's going to come, council's going to go. But it's really about staff who how are they going to be able to drive projects forward, and be innovative, and continue to try and grow the city in a direction that makes sense and is good for everyone, right? So that's really my focus, and that's where I think a lot of developers are focusing. Is we can do business with this staff. This is a good staff. So that's
great point. A great point. I think a lot of people in the public, including myself, you see these mayors and councils change, and then obviously there's kind of a period there you're watching to see what happens. But it's a great point too that Kelowna especially has such a great staff there and a development focus that those people are around for a long time, and these councils do rotate. Speaking of Kelowna, during the height of the pandemic, when money was pretty much felt like it was free, Kelowna was one of the beneficiaries of that from an investment standpoint, where it felt like everybody in commercial real estate, and probably in housing for that matter too, Kelowna was top of mind. And we saw cap rates come down to record-setting levels. Things were selling in multiple offers. Now that hopefully we're sort of peaking a little bit here with the interest rates, and depending on what reports you read, there's a lot of optimism there that the rates are obviously going to start to pull back in 2024. How much? That is yet to be seen. Where's the Kelowna real estate market heading now that we've kind of got to hopefully the peak here? Where are we going over the next couple of years? Because obviously demand's still high, and I know down here everyone still talks about Kelowna all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think sentiment is very positive for sure. The city is still relatively young, and we're a city of roughly 130, trade area of, call it 300,000 people. So there's lots of room for growth. I think if we're looking at metrics, yeah, I mean, I feel like right now we're kind of at the bottom of the trough, and we're going to start to ramp up again, from a pricing perspective, from a cap rate perspective, that kind of idea. I think, everything's obviously tied to cost of money, and as things stabilize there and people wrap their heads around, kind of what the financing looks like, and construction costs continue to stabilize, I think we're just going to see more and more. And like I said earlier in the podcast, the level and the sophistication of groups that are coming into the market that really excites me, is guys that, had never really looked at this market in the past, that now all of a sudden, are very interested in acquiring at scale sites that they can, actually build a business case for being in the Okanagan long term. And that changes, in my mind, Cory, everything, right? It changes the level of the projects, like, the type of project, the quality of the project, architecture, all of those things, being able to deliver it at, price points that, the market can actually afford, like all of those important things. I think, that's just, over the next 10 years, you're going to see a lot of that over, in Kelowna as we continue to mature here.
Yeah, no, I can't agree with you more. So, someone up there who obviously sees how the business model is changing in Kelowna for the good, where does Jeff Hancock put your money? If you're going to buy something in Kelowna, any asset you want, unlimited budget, where's Jeff Hancock's money going?
Beds and sheds, I guess, right? Purpose-built rental and, well-positioned industrial, I think, are going to be, strong for the foreseeable future. I feel like the office market too is maybe a little underrated here. Like, I think, there's a lot of innovation happening again with UBCO and spin-off businesses and lots of entrepreneurs up here now. I feel like strata office would also, be interesting in the right location and the right scale. We don't see a lot of that product. And I think if it was done properly, it could do well here. But yeah, pretty much, almost any asset class in the Okanagan, I feel long-term is a good bet. You might have to wait a little longer, depending on the asset class that you're betting on. But I think at the end of the day, everything is going to go up here. It just kind of has to be honest.
I think the office strata comment you made was very interesting. And I tend to agree with you on it. And the reason why I think you'll find in a lot of these secondary markets that are having such great booms right now, whether it be Vancouver Island or the BC interior, is land prices are becoming so expensive. It's going to probably be hard to deliver office buildings in the future if you get into areas that can have offices and or condos, whether it be purpose-built rental or for sale, that landowners just want the most amount of money for their property. And I think a lot of the office projects potentially may or may not pencil with land prices and obviously construction prices nowadays. Demand for offices will continue to grow as populations grow. But if there's not enough product in that asset class, let's say 5 or 10 years down the road, that might end up being a really, really interesting investment for a lot of people making money or parking money right now in secondary and tertiary markets. And then your exit on it is like your largest pool usually is owner occupiers.
Yeah.
And those guys will always buy, and they're not as affected as the investors are because they're paying rent somewhere. So if they can pay rent to themselves and run their business for 10 or 20 years, that's the best investment they can make.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's, again, I think what it comes down to there is, just executing properly from a development standpoint, making sure that you're providing the right size product with the right amenities and, all of those things that are very, very important, all the nuances. Where again, brokers, I think, can add a lot of value there, right? To developers as they sort of work through this process to make sure that they understand that they're delivering, the most marketable thing possible to them.
And the one thing that I've seen over the years as we've opened offices in these markets is the value and expertise that a local broker brings to the table is priceless. And seeing a lot of things where people will try to parachute in to whether it be the Vancouver Island or the BC interior markets, and they try to parachute in, like they know what's going on. And it's a whole different world in a very good way. If you have a local expert that understands the market, that they pay for themselves 10 times over. And we've seen that as we've opened offices, just the expertise levels of people like yourself that bring to the table in these markets is second to none. And buyers that are looking to invest or move their business or whatever it is, the best piece of advice is to find a local expert in what you're looking for and get them on board early. Because it's the best thing that they can do.
Agreed. I feel like, there's a lot of value add by having the right broker on your side for sure.
Totally agree with you. Jeff, I know you're really busy and I appreciate taking the time to join us today to touch base on the fire situation there. But before we let all of our guests go, we got a 6-pack of lighthearted questions we ask everyone so our listeners can get to know our guests a little bit more outside of the office. Do you have just a few more minutes for us?
Fire away.
The 6-pack is powered by our great friends over at Red Point Law.
Oh, the guys at Red Point Law are fantastic, Cory.
For all your legal needs when it comes to commercial real estate, visit them at redpointlaw.ca. All right, first question up. Kelowna style. Favorite bar or restaurant?
BNA.
B&A. Can you provide for our listeners who don't know what B&A is? Can you let them know a little bit more about that establishment?
A local family-owned, bar, restaurant, super cool spot. It's in a heritage building, in a great area of the downtown. It has bowling lanes. It has awesome food. It's just a great time.
Yeah, I can say last time we were up there in the summertime, I think a bunch of the staff, we all ended up at B&A there for some bowling. It was awesome. And good food. Yeah, really, really good food.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
All right, next question. You found yourself on death row. What is your last meal?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to say it's got to be some sort of delicious pasta.
Good call.
Let's go with a spaghetti bolognese.
Oh,
garlic bread.
Anywhere specific you'd get that from?
Oh, there's a good one here in Kelowna too. It's called Roma Norte, and it's right in the packing house building there. It's fantastic. It's best Italian in town for sure.
Oh, I'm guessing Boston pizza was probably a close second for you, wasn't it? All right, Jeff, next question up. Favorite band or musician?
Right now, I'd say Tyler Childers.
Oh, interesting. Tell us more.
It changes all the time. Tyler's, he's a country guy from Kentucky. And he's fantastic. Singer-songwriter.
Oh, I like that. I have to check that one out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next question. You are drunk at a bar and you're handed a karaoke mic. What song are you singing?
That's never happened. Me drunk at a bar, no way. That's another good question. I would say Purple Rain.
Oh, good one.
I like that.
Good one. I don't think we've had that one yet.
All right.
That's a good one. A book recommendation for our listeners doesn't necessarily have to be real estate related.
Okay. Well, I got a good one. It's a book actually that my brother-in-law is a contributor on. It's called Canaries, and it's about how the COVID crisis was handled.
Oh.
It's fantastic. It's an essay with, it's called Canary in a COVID World. It's a selection of essays. There's 34 different essays from all, people that, were prevalent and voices during that COVID time. Some of them dissenting. It's a good one.
And so, Jeff, for our listeners, I'm going to write this one down myself here. What was the book called?
It's called Canary in a COVID World.
Canary in a COVID World. That would be very interesting. That's a good one. Okay, I'm gonna give that one a listen to.
All right, last question. Something you've purchased for under $1,500 that has had a positive impact on your life.
I'm going to say my fire pit in my backyard.
Oh,
cool.
Good one. It
was probably, it might have been a slightly over 1,500, but it was pretty close.
We'll let that slide. We'll give you the 2,000 then.
You roast marshmallows back there?
No, it's mostly just the soles of my feet. But it's a nice addition for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, how can our listeners find out more about all the great things you're doing in Kelowna if they want to get a hold of you, if they're looking to acquire or sell commercial real estate in the Kelowna area?
Yeah, I mean, they can always reach out. All my contact information is on the William Wright Kelowna website. You can see, sort of my listings, and my partner Shelby and I, we do a lot of different business up here. So, I'll take a look at the website. That's probably the easiest. But my phone is always available. I'm always available by phone or email. If they have questions, I'm happy to provide answers or have a conversation around what's happening up here.
Well, Jeff, thank you once again for taking the time to join us today. I know you guys are really busy up there, but we really appreciate it.
Thanks,
you bet.
Jeff.
Always happy to talk, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Jeff. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There you have it, folks. Our interview with Jeff Hancock from William Wright Commercial Kelowna.
Great to have him.
Tremendous interview.
Mm-hmm.
Wealth of knowledge, as I said in the intro. One good takeaway from that, I think everyone forgets, and I touched base on the interview there, was with the current changeover in the mayor and the council up there, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say rumblings, but people were kind of a little eyebrows up with some of the decision making they made on the development side. So I think it's really quick to judge. I'm equally at fault with regards to that. Current mayors and councils, but Jeff makes a great point in the interview that it's the staff at the cities that are there for the long term and that have the vision. And that's a great point. I think Kelowna has a tremendous runway ahead of it. I don't think it's even remotely done. And Jeff talks about that in the interview. I also touch base about the fire situation and how I don't want to say short-sighted in a negative way, like like downplaying the events, but just how people kind of just business will carry on. Investors are still going to buy. People are still moving into the area. And I can tell you from just a company standpoint, immediately after the fires, we had lots of subject removals coming in, both on the buy and the tenant side for Kelowna, which when the fire hit, I didn't know, unfortunately, how that would impact in the short term. Surprisingly, in a very positive way. A lot of subject removals came in like within a week after, which means people are carrying on, which is great to hear. And Kelowna will bounce back. It's an amazing city, and I love visiting every time I get a chance to visit there. Melissa, speaking of markets, how is the residential market now that we're past Labor Day? Is it kind of like rates are holding?
Rates are holding.
Are housing going to go up, or what's happening in the housing side of things?
Hard to say. I mean, last time, rates held and we thought they were coming down a little bit, things went a little bit crazy.
That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, not crazy in the grand scheme of things, but relative to how slow things were, the sentiment in the market was positive and buyers absolutely came back. We saw prices increase. So hard to say for sure. I think after that, I try not to speculate anymore because it seems like in the last few years, what has been typical in the last 10 years is just not typical. So
good point.
Yeah, hard to say, but I think in the grand scheme of it, we have such a lack of supply that, are prices ever really going to go down significantly in my mind? I don't think so, apart from some catastrophic event.
Yeah. No, I think supply and demand issues will outlive us in this province between geographical and political challenges this province has. Like supply and demand will always win out. Prices long-term will always win.
So for those who want to run 10K with Cory in 4 weeks, how can they get a hold of you to join your team?
Yeah, well, if you want to run 10K with me, you will have to start today because we may not finish it for the next 4 weeks. If you look at this pear-shaped guy running on the side of the road.
I don't know. Cory was just telling me how much he used to run. I think there's a comeback.
The key there was used to. Now I sit on a Peloton and break them. That's what I do now. I'm not. I don't have the same running ability I once did. But for those who want to buy and sell commercial real estate in this province, they can reach out to William Wright Commercial anytime. You can visit our website, williamwright.ca. You can call our Vancouver office, 604-428-5255. Let us know what you're looking for. Put you in touch with the best agent throughout the province. Or you can send me an email anytime, Cory@williamwright.ca. Always love hearing from people. Always happy to talk real estate. And for those who want to buy, sell their condos, houses, or townhouses in this province, how can they get a hold of you?
You can call me at 778-869-4477 or send me an email at melissa@vancouverrealestatepodcast.com.
And we're back now, guys. We have a great lineup of guests over the fall into the winter here. So we have a lot of exciting shows. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
Subscribe today.